Good morning.
Beautiful day, always in paradise, isn't it?
Yes.
As Greg posted, most of you saw on Facebook, the topic this morning is Your Life is Unlimited. And it comes from the Science of Mind textbook on page 465. And I believe most people here should have a Science of Mind textbook, or you're missing a lot. And Ernest had gone on to say that your life is unlimited, meaning that life has everything already. It's just a matter of accepting it, allowing it to happen. Now, many people will be here and say, well, I seem to do all the right things, but why is my life all screwed up? And I think when people stand in front of people and talk about things like this, and people are sitting there and have challenges in life, who are you to talk about this? So I'm going to start off telling you a little about me, a little bit how I got involved with Ernest Holmes as a young man, and what it's done for me. My life is unlimited. Am I a millionaire? No. As far as money goes, or abundance in that thing, but as far as abundance in other ways, I am totally a millionaire. I have more than anything in this universe that I need or ever can use. I'd like to have more of the green stuff, but I have all my needs taken care of. When I was a youngster growing up in New York, there used to be a radio show called This Is Your Life. And the speaker on that radio show was Ernest Holmes. And he had that show for many, 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 many years. And afterwards, all those recordings seemed to be lost. But they found them in the basement of Emmet Fox's church in New York. Emmet Fox was a divine science minister. And a lot of people don't realize Ernest Holmes was not a religious science minister. He was a divine science minister. And Ernest never really wanted to start a church. He was a teacher. And he was a teacher until the day he died. But many of his followers out in California wanted to create a denomination after him. And that's how religious science started. And Ernest Holmes changed my life. And I have to talk about my life before I can talk about how Ernest changed. Now, I know many people in this room are 12-steppers. And back in my early days, I did my share of alcohol and drugs, and I was a heroin addict. And it all ended for me in a gutter in Brick Church Station in East Orange, New Jersey in 1960, when I climbed out of my dumpster trying to make it to the railroad station to do a hustle. My skin had turned all yellow. I was suffering from two types of hepatitis A and B, and I had turned yellow, and I was slowly dying and didn't know it, and I fell in the gutter, and the snow covered me, and I was suffering from both infectious A and B hepatitis from dirty living and dirty needles. Difference between noodles and needles. And, you know, in the recovery process, where I was in the isolation ward because I was contagious, I had a number of books that were given to me, and I wasn't a reader up till that time. And one of the books was the Science of Mind textbook. And it left a great impression upon my life. There were other things, other people, Emmet Fox, Napoleon Hill, and so forth, that all were part of the mentoring system that would go through many, many decades, because we're talking about when I first was introduced to this as a young child over many decades ago to today. I've gone through a lot of transformations and transitions. And, you know, part of it was, who am I? I'm just a drug addict that didn't know much about anything except being on the street, hustling, how to make a deal, guns, violence, and things like that. So how did I get where I am today? Well, I was impressed by Ernest Holmes, and I began to study what Ernest Holmes and how he got to be who he was. So let me tell you a little bit about Ernest Holmes and his teachings that made the effect on me to who I am today, and what pulled myself up by the bootstraps, because that's really what it was. I came in as a victim, and I feel I'm a victor today. When Ernest Holmes read Emerson's essays on spiritual law, he began to understand the meaning of the soul from a metaphysical point of view. There is an essence in each of us that remains pure and untouched, that can know neither deformity nor pain. Only the finite can suffer from the infinite lies stretched in smiling repose. It's a pretty big statement. And he's talking about the difference between finite and infinite. And of course, infinite we cannot understand because we are finite. When we have destroyed the God of intellect and broken with the God of tradition, then God fills us with his presence. Stop defining God and simply let God be God in you. And I often tell people, let God be God. Don't put him in a box and create him in your image, because somehow the passage that was said we were all created in the image and likeness of God, we live, breathe in his existence, got lost because we created God in our image. We put him in a box and defined what God was and how it looked and all this other stuff. So God, as we know him traditionally, is a creation of man. And so from Emerson, Holmes embodied these three ideas. Number one, we are our own spiritual authority. 2, there is a godlike essence in every person. 3, there is some kind of connection between our thoughts and what happens to us. Now, if we do not like our outer circumstances, conditions, or our personality, the place to begin to change is right within our own mind. Not out there or out there or out there, but within here. Ernest believes this is the basis of healing in all of life's areas. And when we talk about healing, we're not talking about healing only from the physical. We're talking from the emotional, and we're talking from the financial. There's healing that goes on all the time. He said, number 1, prayer continues consciously or unconsciously all the time. What does that mean? It means we're praying all the time. Thoughts are not things, but thoughts become things. So whatever you're thinking, eventually, if you think and hold on to it as a dominant thought, it becomes the essence of your life. It becomes who you are. It is a reflection of you in your spiritual mirror. Therefore, we must learn to consciously pray without ceasing and behold the good of everything, everyone and everything. And when praying without ceasing, that means monitor your thoughts. 2, we can overcome negative relative conditions by learning to control our thoughts. And 3, we are not victims of circumstance. We actually can create the conditions in our life by the way we think about it. So, obviously, we're not victims, we're creators. And if we happen to have negative situations in our life, we created it. Now, where did Ernest get all this information from? There was actually a number of influences. One was Curtis Hopkins, and I don't know if any of you have ever heard of her, but you ought to look her up. She is called the teacher of teachers. And why? Well, Emma Hopkins was a student of Mary Barker Ether, the founder of Christian Science. But she had a split with Hopkins. I mean, with Mary Barker Ether. And she did not believe in everything that Christian Science said. She believed if you needed a doctor, God would lead you to the right doctor for treatment. She believed that everything is spiritual, and if a surgeon is working, he's working through the inspiration of God. And that was the major difference between her and Barker, who believed in Christian Science, that all you have to do is sit there, and if you have illness, if God doesn't cure you, then you deserve to die. So it was a whole thing. So Curtis Hopkins started her own school of thought, and she was the teacher of major people in the New Thought field. She was the teacher of the Brooks sisters. The Brooks sisters were the founders of divine science, which Ernest was a minister of, and also Emmet Fox. She was a teacher of the two Fillmores, who founded Unity, and she was also Ernest Holmes' teacher. So she had a big, big influence. So this is where all this teaching came from. And if you want to go beyond that, there's Thomas Quimby, who was from Maine, the same as Holmes, who started this way back at the mid part of the 18th century, and also Mary Barker Etty was a student of Quimby. So you see, this goes back quite a ways. So this truth lessons that we have, and has been going on for a long time, have been there for a long time. For those from Orthodox faiths such as Christianity and Judaism, it's all in their holy scriptures and everything. It just has to be interpreted the right way. But of course, since we made God, put him in a box and decided what God would be, then we think, well, we'll interpret it through the man's mind, and the man's mind, first thought wrong. We all know that expression. And so what we need to do is to look at it from a metaphysical or spiritual point of view. So when we talk about prosperity, we're talking about prosperity in every area of our life. We're talking about it in relationships. We're talking about it in enrichment of our intellect. We're talking about a financial abundance that we don't need to suffer. Anything you can think of is in us to change through the power of our thought. Now, Ernest Holmes talks about involution and evolution, and most people know what evolution is, but they don't know what involution is. And so if you believe in truth and what Holmes taught, first of all, you have to understand what involution is. Everybody knows what an acorn is. And the acorn in the involution is already pre-programmed in the acorn to become a mighty oak tree. A seed from a sunflower is programmed within it to be a sunflower. It has no choice. The involution within it evolved into those things. But man is a little bit different, because we inherited something called free will. Free will is a great thing, but it can also be a bad thing, depending on your power of choice. But if we use our free will and we lined it up with the free will of the universe, God, infinite intelligence, source, whatever name you want to give it, because it really doesn't matter what you want to call the creator, because a rose is a rose even if you call it a daisy. This isn't going to change. So if you want to call God, source, infinite intelligence, higher power, really doesn't make any difference, because a rose is a rose no matter what you call it. So God knows who God is. So you're not going to insult God. So first of all, you use your free will to align it up with the will of the Creator. What is the will of the Creator? That you have everything that you want to desire. There's no suffering. There needs to be no bloodshed for anything. You were given the gift. You were given the gift of free will. You were given the gift to be an inheritor of all that there is. But the trouble is, we don't accept that and we don't allow it, because we fall into what our mind says. And I forgot to shut my phone down, so give me 1 second, because I'd be the first one to complain if somebody's phone rings. So, we need to take that free will and we need to line it up with the free will of the universe. And when we do that, everything we need comes automatically to us. Now, that free will do two things for us. We can get stuck in the mud and can't get out and sink into the quicksand. Or we can evolve to the sun rays and rise above the mud and come out as a beautiful flower. The choice is ours. That's why I said earlier, there's no such thing as victims. It's a choice. Now, I know if you're struggling with a relationship, if you're struggling with financial problems, if you have things like houses being foreclosed and automobiles being repossessed, and you have all kinds of financial struggles, and you're sitting in it, and in the moment you're in it, it's pretty hard to listen to some guy up there talking to you, telling you that everything is yours when you're in the middle of it. A relationship breaks up, it's one of the most painful things in the earth while you're going through it. And then when you get on the other side, all of a sudden you find you're normal again. But as human beings, we always look at loss instead of gain. I was talking to a young man yesterday, and he was telling me about his wife left him, and he had a young child, and she went with another man, and he found out that she was seeing this other man the whole time they were married, and poor him, and poor him, and poor him. And I looked at him, I said, I congratulate you. And he looked at me like, what the heck are you talking about? I said, because you need to be congratulated, because now you have to close one door and open another door, because you couldn't see that misery you were in. You had all that happen, and then you'd want to go back. He tells me all the things she did, but I miss her. I really want her. I want to kill her boyfriend. Have some gratitude that you're not there going through that next year and the year after and year. And when you're in the middle of it, and he was definitely in pain, he was hurting, but he didn't expect me to say that to him. So I had to wake him up and let him know that his greater good is on the horizon if he would just allow it or accept it. So acceptance becomes a very important part of this, where you are in your whole life. You need to accept goodness in your life, and then you need to allow goodness in your life. So if you just accept it and don't allow it, you're the same old song. Nothing changes, nothing changes. We've all heard that same expression. So if you don't like where you're at, change. Change mentally. You don't have the power to go out and change physical situations or challenges by force, but you have the power through the God within you to change them through thought. Now, a lot of people hear me talk all the time. I always talk about the visualization comes before the manifestation. And what does that mean? Well, if you're not going into treatment on a daily basis, and then treatment is one step beyond meditation, or in meditation on a daily basis, and begin to change the you within yourself, nothing on the outside is going to change. And you can't go into treatment or meditation and see yourself in your greatest glory and 5 minutes later doubt who you are as a human being and that I don't deserve it. One cancels the other. And I know people that pray continuously and they pray and they say nothing changes. But are they praying right? Are they praying in truth? You know, I like the expression of this woman. She gets a shut-off notice from Florida Power and Light. And then Comcast sends her a thing. They're shutting off the cable. Then the water is being shut off, and she gets down on her knees and she prays to God, and God, please don't let this happen. And she's hours and hours in prayer, and the sweat is dropping down from her. And the next day, everything gets shut off. And she says, God, why did you forsake me? What she didn't realize is she was using her infinite power of God within her to create the things that she didn't want. Because the whole idea of meditation and treatment is when you see the truth in the truth thing. You see it, you picture it, you feel it with the emotions, and then the manifestation comes. All she did was saw the truth of her truth, that the lights were going to be shut off, the water was going to be shut off, everything, Comcast was going to be shut off. And what she did was create that situation. Now, if she prayed aright, how it would happen, because I was always taught, never look how things happen, just accept that they're going to happen. Somebody at the power company may have forgot the thing, or a check may come in the mail, or whatever way the universe would deliver the answer to her prayer would show up, one way or another. It may have been a simple phone call, hey, can you hold off for a week? It doesn't matter. But as long as she saw the truth of the matter, she would have created a situation which was much different. Well, we do that in our lives. If you want a relationship to come into your life, are you ready for that relationship? Are you ready inside yourself? Because you're going to attract yourself. You're going to attract yourself. And if there's something about you that you don't quite like, you're going to attract somebody who has something about them that they don't quite like. But when you see yourself as a loving, caring, good human being who can be a partner and can offer everything, and that you're a good person, all of a sudden somebody will show up. You may not recognize it at first, but it will hit you on the side of the neck. And if you're looking for perfection, believe me, it doesn't happen. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. It's give and take and sometimes kicked. But there are good relationships. I was taught that if you got 80% of what you want, you're in a fantastic relationship. You don't have 20%, hey, that's life. You're dealing with human beings. But 80% is a darn good relationship. You want more money. And you said, well, I'm not good enough. Where is it going to come from? I have no skills. It doesn't matter. If you believe in yourself that things will come to you, it will come to you. But don't negate it. Because if you negate it, you cancel all the mental work you put into it. It will happen. You see yourself with all the abundance you want. You see yourself with everything you need. It will come. Without a doubt. How? It's not for us to figure out. All channels are available. If you sit and pray, God, let me hit the lottery, you may never hit the lottery because that may not be the channel that was open to you. You allow. This is something higher. This is something better in your prayers. Always allow the universe to deliver to you any way you can. You have to pray unceasingly, continuously. And that's by right thinking, because every thought is a prayer. Every thought is a prayer. And if you think about it long enough and it becomes a dominant thought, that's what's going to happen into your life. And there's some rules that you really have to consider when you get into to doing the right thing. You know, when we're not receiving all the blessings we desire, it's because we're not sharing with others the blessing that we have in a wise and open-hearted way. That's a quote from Ernest Holmes. I'm going to say it again. When we're not receiving all the blessings we desire, it is because we're not sharing with others the blessing that we have in a wise and open-hearted way. The spiritual practice of sacred giving begins with the recognition that it is part of the nature to give and receive. Our inner life depends on what we make a conscious plan and plan to give. We experience a greater satisfaction when we are a part of the flow of life. The way to happiness lies in consciously choosing to be part of a divine flow of life. This includes being willing to share our lives, our times, our talents, and our money with others. Now, when money is mentioned in any type of church, people start to shrivel up a little bit. What's the pitch? Well, the pitch is giving is a spiritual principle, and whatever you give, you will receive 10 times over. Now, whether you give because of love is great, but if you give because you want more out of greed, you will still get more. So it doesn't matter, because the law is the law. Whatever you give will come back to you 10 times. You want to give nothing but verbal abuse to somebody, guess what? It's going to come back to you 10 times worse. From a different place, but it will come back. If you want to be real cheap with your employees and have them work at slave wages, guess what? Every time you make a substantial amount of money, it will be taken from you. The universe has its own way of justice. In the Far East, they call it karma. In the 12-step programs, they call it, what comes around goes around. It's all the same thing. So, you know, sometimes you sit in church and say, well, you know, I see this in 12-step programs where everybody puts $1 in the basket. In 1960, they put $1 in the basket. And, you know, rent keeps going up. But churches say, for instance, is this. I'm sure, and I have no idea what Greg pays the Masonic Lodge here, but knowing Masonic lodges, because I am a Mason, I'm sure they're charging him anywhere close between $400 and $500 a month. It's got to be paid for. He can't take it out of his own pocket. It's part of what we do who come here and give. You know, I've always been taught that if you want spirituality in your life, you give where you get the spiritual message. And so I don't like when preachers get up there and start talking about tithing and all that stuff, but I know enough about truth to know that if I don't give, I don't receive. And if I want more out of life, I need to put that little ingredient in. Yeah, if you think right and you meditate a lot and you treat right, you can increase your monetary value, but somehow it'll be taken from you either financially, physically, sickness, and other things. So I'm going to stay on the right side of things. I'll stay on the right side of things. I give because it's the right thing to do, and I give because I want more. That's human. So no matter what we do, if you're stuck wherever you are, there is a way out. It's called prayer. It's called meditation. It's called treatment, whatever you call it. There was a treatment earlier, and that treatment is part of how we go. It's praying in a way that you set in motion all the dynamics to have that creation coming in your life. And I'm going to do a treatment of Ernest Holmes. It's only going to take a minute or two. But it's on for total abundance, total prosperity of everything in life. So if you just get yourself centered, put your back up straight, close your eyes, take a good deep breath. And not only follow the words that I'm going to say to you, emotionally see them and feel it as I go through it. There is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life right here, right now. Because I know that I am one with the life that is God. I therefore know I am one with a life that is infinite and abundant in nature. I now open up my mind and heart to accept the truth that the infinite and abundant nature of God is flowing freely through the faith of my being. It comes into expression in my life in the form of money, goods, services, ideas, opportunities, and whatever else might be required in order for me to know life and to know it more abundantly. I now release any thought, belief, idea, attitude, or suggestion I might hold that does not conform with the truth that I have spoken here. And in knowing that this is so, I let go, and I let God be the only presence acting in my experience of life. With an open, gracious, and joyous heart, I accept the abundance of all that is good into my life, right here and right now. And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you for letting me share this morning.
Thank you.